Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video, I am going to talk about eyeshadow palettes. You know how much I get excited about eyeshadow palettes, and today we're going to talk about my top 10 eyeshadow palettes for this year so far. I don't even know how I'm going to rank towards the end of the year. I wanted to do this as quickly as possible before the holiday season kicks in because I know there'll be a lot of things that are entering in my collection. But before that, let me give you a quick rundown on my top palettes, and I wanted to choose like one palette per brand so that you have an idea of like what is my top tippy top favorites. If there are any other particular palette that I really want to shout out, I will definitely do. I wanted to pick out 10. I have 11 just because there's one palette here which I literally combine it with a lot of other palettes and I wanted to talk about it too. So I'm going to give you 11 palettes and I'm thinking nobody's going to be mad at it. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, let's start off with Bella Beauty Bar. This year, whatever palettes came and like released from Bella Beauty Bar, I think this palette is my favorite because of the size, because of the color story, and these are particularly like my favorites, right? It might not be your favorites if you like a color that I do not like. For example, green. I can appreciate green once in a while, but I am not a big diehard fan of green. So if you're a green lover, I think you'll be disappointed. But let me tell you, Dead Roses palette from Bella Beauty Bar, I feel like they came out with this in early February, I think, or January end. And this captivated my heart like no other because I am a die-hard fan of neutrals and purples. Okay, that is what I really love and wear most of the time. And when I saw this color story, I was like, this is so beautiful. I was immediately drawn towards the latter half of the palette for sure, but I often wear the top half also. The only shade I feel like that I'm not like reaching out to is like these reds and corals, like these two shades, but rest everything I use, it feels like a flat pink palette, but the shifts are so beautiful and dimensional. I just love this palette with my whole heart. I wear this half so regularly throughout the year, but I'm very sure for the Halloween season, this top part will also come in super handy. And the quality is absolutely stunning with this palette. Definitely one of my favorite palettes for this year. And the size, I love this size when Bella Beauty Bar does this size. I don't like the huge palettes, and that's the main reason why I did not buy the I think that was the Pastel Garden palette. I didn't get that, but otherwise this size is like my happy medium. When they get into more than $70, I'm a little iffy. Not saying that this is a low cost palette or anything. This is definitely in 60s, but so is every other indie brand. I would love for them to lower their prices because I cannot deal with the price increase that they are doing. If they're giving like extremely special shadows, yes, I can justify the prices, but I don't want like 10 different special multi-chromes in a palette too. Just throwing it out there, but this size is my favorite. Okay, talking about a lower cost palette which can give you variety as well as beautiful neutral tones is this Neutrals palette from Cosmic Beauty. This is such an amazing palette. This stays on my vanity for the entire year. I would say from the time it's landed, it's not gone in the drawer at all. Look at these shadows. Yes, it's neutral, but it is colorful and muted. And this is exactly what I want in a palette. Like I want neutral tones, but with special shades, but also muted. Okay, this is my kind of color story. I really love this. I would have definitely appreciated if there were a few more deeper shades. They've given us a burgundy and like a black, I think, yes, to deepen it out. Even this can go a little deep. But rest, I feel like there are a lot of closer brown shades and that can be my skin tone. Like this shade, it's pretty much similar on my skin tone. This is a beautiful darkening shade for me. It's okay for me. So there are aspects of it that are like okay, but I really love the way the price is, the variety is there. I really love the shimmers in this palette. The mattes blend beautifully. They build very nicely. I really appreciate this palette. And they have given us like a multi-chrome here too, which I really like. That orangey, fiery multi-chrome. Very beautiful, very beautiful. But I also appreciate the duochromes that are there in the palette. Like this one, look at that. It's so pretty. Even this one is a duochrome, but these have that like those sparkly shades too. Really love this palette. Cannot wait to see what cosmic brushes have in for us. I have been eyeing a lot of their palettes, even their Cool Drills palette, one of my favorite palettes. Like I really love the way how any look that comes out of that palette on me, I really like that. But this is the one that I reach out for regularly. I will definitely talk about a lot more cool tone palettes in this, because I love a good neutral and a cool tone and a warm tone mixed up together. It's just the color story, okay? Talking about the color story, this was the palette that I was talking. This is not a palette that I would reach out on a regular basis, but if I want deep, dark, smoky tones, this is the palette that I reach out for. And this is the Wicked Widow Beauty Crow palette. Such a beautiful palette. And this is a palette that I would pair it up with other eyeshadow palettes also in my collection. Just because when I open it, I'm like, oh, it's a lot of deeper tones. But it gives some beautiful variety on the eyes. You can get some green looks, blue looks, purple looks, red looks, some neutral looks. You bet me, like I often wear these two on the eyes and get a beautiful neutral look. I really love that for that too. This palette, I feel like you should not mix more than 3 shades out of this palette to get a beautiful look. I really love the quality of the palette. If this is your color story, of course, these are all not blacks, okay? This has some beautiful like a blue tint to it. There's a green tint to it. This is like a flat black, but all of this melt in so nicely. I've actually duped my Bebar Vamp palette. Half of the palette is duped by this palette. Like, it's so beautiful and versatile palette. I appreciate this mixing it with the other palette, but I definitely wanted to call it out. Let's talk about a brand that I discovered this year. Was it this year? Yes, this year. They started their brand this year, and I am blown away, to say the least, because of the color story. The color story, the quality that they have put out is truly beyond excellence. And I'm gonna pick out my favorite palette, but I'm telling you, if you love any color story from their brand, just go and get it, because you will not be disappointed. And I am talking about Kryptein Cosmetics, and this one is the Crazy Violet palette. I love my purples, and this I feel like is my favorite purple palette that I have in my collection for a reason. Oh my gosh, I cannot even wait for you guys to see what all they have coming up. It is so pretty, you guys. This is by far, it gives me so much of variety, but staying in that purple zone, but you can also get some neutral looks out of it. I can mix and match these shades because these shades are magnetic too. I love that aspect in any palette. I would say Wicked Widow Beauty's any palette that is magnetic. Any palettes from Bella Beauty Bar that you buy right now is magnetic. Kryptein Cosmetics is magnetic. I love Ensley Rains are magnetic. I love an aspect of like magnetic palette, because whenever I travel, or even if I'm not traveling, I love to keep like my perfect palette, which you'll see very soon, okay? Because I just don't want to mix up with the original palette, because I love the way how that palette created. They also have Burnt Forest palette. They also have Atlantis palette, which is a blue palette, and Burnt Forest is like reddy green, like a foresty color story. All of them beautiful. If you're a blue lover, go with Atlantis. If you like those foresty red, oranges, green tones, go with Burnt Forest palette. If you love your purples, do not skip out on this palette, because you'll cry when this goes out, because this is so beautiful. Really love everything about it. They're coming out with smaller palettes. Cannot wait. I don't know if that palette is out or not when you're seeing this, but love it. Okay, let's move on with next palette, and that is Sigma. Sigma did Cool Neutrals palette this year, and this had like a lot of mixed reviews. Some people liked it, some people were feeling iffy about it. I really like it. Especially, okay, let me tell you the audience who will like this. If you are medium skin tone, like light medium tan skin tone, you would appreciate this palette. If you love neutral tones but also appreciate a little bit of color thrown in here and there, because this palette definitely has some neutral tones, some warm tones, some cooler tones, some mauvey tones. you can definitely get some great office looks. And the best part is, again, to use only 2 or 3 shadows so that you don't muddy it up. But these shadows, they look so beautiful and elegant on the eyes. Like, I've used it tons for office looks. Really appreciate a black being here, but I also see why lighter tone people would not like it, and on the other hand, like deeper people not liking it, just because for lighter people I feel like everything is pretty much mid-tone, and for deeper tone I feel like everything is gonna like muddy up to show more like gray leaning. I feel like there's a very niche audience for this palette, but if you are light, medium tan, I feel like this palette is really beautiful, because I fall under that span of audience. I feel like this is amazing quality. This is by far my favorite Sigma palette that they have ever created. I really love the way how this, like the packaging is, the color story is, the way it blends. The shimmers are definitely more elevated. I really like this one. Okay, let's talk about one high-end palette, which I really didn't think that it will fall here, because I don't think there's any other high-end palette in this collection, in the eyeshadow palettes that I'm talking about, except this one. And I'm talking about Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette. I didn't think I would like this as much as I do, okay? I really use this quite often, and I really appreciate it. Mine is, again, mixed and matched according to my liking, but even the way it is, I feel like it's beautiful. I just put some, I have mixed with some other Natasha Denona palettes in my collection just to make it a little bit more interesting, and I really love the way how this turned out. But also I keep mixing and matching my palettes just to feel like I have a new palette in my collection, and I use it even more. So I really love the way, but even the way it is, it's a beautiful warm color story. It's just beautiful on the eyes. If you like a good neutral, I would say it's more neutral than warm for me. If you like a good neutral color story, if you are my skin tone, I think you would absolutely love it. The shimmers are beautiful. The mattes are amazing. I really love the variety that they have given us. I'll definitely pop it on the screen how it actually looks, because this is definitely my version of it, right? Saying about my version, the next palette is also my version, but I absolutely deny to put it back. I will do it towards the end of the year, but I use this so very much that I don't want to mess it up right now. Okay, and I'm talking about Ensley Cosmetics Groovy Garden palette. The mattes make it up for me for this palette. Like, the mattes that were chosen in this palette is just at par excellence. That was my palette. I would have shifted some of the green shimmers just because I feel like it's too much green shimmers for me, but I'm not taking anything out of that palette, because I feel like they've definitely put like less squishy shimmers, which is what I love from Ensley Cosmetics. I have basically mixed Flutter palette, this Groovy Garden palette, and some aspects of Cold Moon palette in this, and made my custom palette. I just love the way how this came out, and I use it so much, so I don't want to mess it up, okay? And even when I'll do a year-end ranking, I'll obviously take it out and keep it in my same packaging, because I'll show you exactly how it is. Obviously, I'll show you exact picture of how Groovy Garden looks, but this palette, the one that I created, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you, because I love. It's not a news to anybody. I love, like, love is an understatement when I say for Ensley. I love Ensley Cosmetics. Their quality is beautiful and outstanding. I feel like you don't need any glitter glue to apply it on your eyes. Actually, the shade that I'm wearing on my eyes is a single shadow from Ensley Cosmetics. Let me tell you what it is. If you're wondering, the mattes are from the, I'll tell you where the mattes are from, but I just used one shimmer shadow from Ensley, and this is Shattered Wings, and this was from the Flutter and Flourish collection, the singles, and that's exactly what I have all over my eyelid. And I love their singles, okay? I use it quite often. I love their wearable shimmers. You know how much I love it. And this has like a little bit of yellow tint, which I felt like went really well with my yellow top, and I love it. I love their shadows in particular. Everything, like my favorites out of their collection, let me tell you, is the Cold Moon palette, the Flutter palette, and this. Very hard to rank everything, but the mattes of the Groovy Garden palette is my favorite, and the shimmers out of the Flutter palette is my favorite, okay? I really love it. Like, I can tell you for an instant, like, this is a shadow from the Flutter palette. This, I feel like, is the most used shadow in my whole collection. I just love this so very much. What is this? Oh, it is the shadow called Moonflower. Again, this is all like mixed up, so this is not how the palette looks, but majority of the mattes are in this palette, okay? But I love, if you love a good matte in your collection, you need Groovy Garden. Because, not saying that their shimmers are bad, okay? Please, I don't want you to think like that, because their shimmers are amazing. Amazing. Especially if you're a green lover, you absolutely need Groovy Garden in your life. And majority of the mattes that are chosen in this palette, like this, it's all from Groovy Garden. There are like a few mattes that are like rosy tone and purpley tones, that is from Cold Moon, but apart from that, everything else is from Groovy Garden. That's because I just love that palette so very much. Even like the shimmers, these are Groovy Garden. See this one, that's Harvest Moon, this is Cold Moon, this is Cold Moon, this is Flutter, this is Flutter, this is Flutter. Yeah, it's a mix, okay? It's a mix, and I just love it. I just love it, but I cannot live without talking about Ensley because they create some amazing, they're my like #1 indie brand that I have in my collection, so I definitely have to shout it out. Okay, let's talk about a palette that I have non-stop use it, and this is a palette that I had to keep it in my basket so that I stop using it and use more shadows. When this came, I felt I went like into so many vacations, and this was a perfect palette for my vacations. I just love the way how they created this palette, and this is from Adept Cosmetics, and this is the Flying Fiddles palette. I feel like they just created such a beautiful color story. Now, if you know me, I've said this a million times, I just swap out this shade and put a purple, like deep dark purple matte shade and a purple multichrome here, and that's my perfect palette, okay? I really love the way this palette is curated. Again, I love the aspect that this is all magnetic, so I can mix and match, I can mix it up to create my perfect color tone for the for traveling. And I've done like several videos like that where I've customized and traveled with it, and I've recorded so that you guys can see how I customize it. This is an amazing palette to have in your collection, and this is a palette that doesn't have any squishy shadows from Adept Cosmetics. I am a person who has creasy eyelids, and I do not like when my eyeshadows creases, and that's why I say do not use any glitter glue with Ensley shadows, because they perform beautifully on my eyes without a glitter glue. And this, I feel like whenever I use a squishy shadow from Adept Cosmetics, my eyelids just eat it up, and this palette doesn't have any squishy shadows, and they last on my eyelids for a long time, and they look absolutely vibrant on my eyes, and I love the aspect of that. Really would recommend this Flying Fiddles palette from Adept Cosmetics. By far my favorite palette that they have done so far. Okay, let's talk about a palette that also I feel like this is a palette, this is the first palette that I've tried from them, and I am shook the way how they do their eyeshadows, okay? I was pleasantly very surprised that I've not tried their palettes, but also because the color story never spoke to me. This was a palette where I was like, yeah, I feel like this is a color story that I would use really well, and I'm talking about Fantasy Cosmetica Cradled in Ice palette. This palette is just stunning. I feel like I've fallen in love with this palette, with the shimmers, with the mattes. The way they blend on the eyes is so beyond me. I love to wear 2 shadow looks with this. 2 shadow looks is what I absolutely thrive with this palette, maximum 3, and they just create magic on my eyes. Is this magnetic? I've never tried this. Yes, it is magnetic. So that's it. I just love that aspect. I can definitely, like, I would love if companies would come out and label their shadows, because that would make my life a little bit easier. But if you have to increase your price for that, don't do it. I can do it with my Sharpie. But this palette's quality is absolutely beyond amazing. I love to mix my pinks and blues together. I can get a beautiful purple look out of it. I can get neutral looks out of it. Again, these shimmers are they're not like a lot shifty or anything, but they're so sparkly, and I love a good sparkle on my eyes. I often wear this to office when I'm craving that cool tone look. I really, really, really love this quality that Fantasy Cosmetica has. Cannot wait to see what they have coming for holiday season, because I feel like I might just grab that one too. Okay, let's talk about a neutral palette that absolutely knocked my socks off. This palette is from Glaminatrix Cosmetics, and this is the Barely Basic palette. This is what I have on my eyes for the mattes, especially the warm tone side. But this palette gives you a variety. You have cool tones, you have warm tones, you have greeny tones, you have cool neutral tones. It is such a beautiful palette. I love that they gave us like some straight shimmery eyeshadows and some iridescent multichromes on the top row. I feel like this is so perfectly curated. I absolutely love the Rich Romantic palette. That was my #1 palette till this palette came into my collection. But again, because this is magnetic, I generally do it. Rich Romantic is another palette that stays on my vanity all the time, okay, because I love my pinks and purples. I would obviously all the time mix and match those two palettes together, because I love the quality that Glaminatrix comes with. And these pans are definitely more smaller as compared to a regular size pans. Do not have anything to complain, because I get more shadows at the same price, and I appreciate that anytime, because I never go out of the eyeshadows. I never pan eyeshadow because I have so much in my collection. But the quality of this, if you're looking for a neutral eyeshadow palette in your collection but with special shimmers, this is the one to go for. It's so very beautiful. Let's move on to my last palette. This palette, I was arguing what to get into for this brand, because I absolutely love this brand too in my collection, but I went for the ones that were released for this year, and I have to talk about Gargoyle palette from Unearthly Cosmetics. This palette, if you are a cool tone lover, you would absolutely love this palette. This is such an amazing palette. You get your warm tones and neutral tones, but you get like your sages, your dusty, murky blues. You also get some purpley tones, your gray tones, your natural brown tones. You also get some bronzes. It is such a beautiful palette. The looks that come out of this palette is beyond me. It's just beautiful. The way it blends on the eyes, the depth that they have given us, they're just beautiful. I feel like Amanda, the owner of Unearthly Cosmetics, she creates some beautiful color story. And I cannot wait to see what she has coming for the holiday season, because we have definitely seen some sneak peeks that she has used, but I definitely want to see the whole palette all in one. And I immediately, like, even Sorcerer's Smoke palette that came into my collection this year, like early January. I absolutely love that palette too, but I feel like this gives us everything that palette also gives, because this has some warm tones, it has some green tones that I really like. These are the murky green tones that I like, but it also has blues and purples, which that palette doesn't have. I really love it. Again, this palette is also magnetic, which I love that I can mix and match with that. Love the direction where Unearthly Cosmetics is going. I cannot even tell you how excited I am. Okay, so I told you about the eyeshadow palette. I also want to shout out what is on my lips. I am wearing Menagerie Cosmetics Mother Earth lipstick on my lips. And I feel like this is such a good vampy, earthy brown shade. I really love the way how this turned out. So those were my top 10 palettes, top 11 palettes in my collection for 2024 so far. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have anything in your collection that you have absolutely enjoyed, that you got this year, do sound it out in the comment section below. If I have not purchased it, I'll definitely give it a go. But that's all for today. If you did like it, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. and ring the notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.